Welcome to the Broken Brains podcast. I am the producer, Deny Caballero, and today with me is the host, Bruce Parkman. Bruce, thank you for being here, man. I'm excited to be part of this journey.
Denny, I'll tell you what, man, we tried this once and we never had a producer. So I like somebody sticking me in the butt, telling me what to do. I need a drill sergeant, man. So can't thank you enough for helping us out, man.
Absolutely,
it's
man.
going to be an awesome series, man.
Yeah,
Best in America.
That's right. It's just like being back on a team, man. You just need to have somebody there with you. You need that junior and senior bond. So we'll make it happen. But Bruce, I want to start off with by saying that what you are doing, what you and your organization are doing is nothing short than amazing work. And like many of us that start these endeavors that are passion driven and purpose driven, sadly, there's a story of loss and tragedy that is the catalyst. So today I want to ask you, Bruce, what exactly happened to Mac?
September 24th, 2020, COVID was raging and, it was tough times for everybody. My company wasn't doing well. I was spending all day trying to, fix it. Then that night, I got my couch here. I used to sit on one side of it. My son sat on the other. He had these headphones on. He was a game man. Apex, whole 9 yards. I just sit next to him because it was my time. I practiced my bagpipes, and we did that all through COVID, man. And then for some reason, he wasn't going to play football. I was like, good, because you join the Army. I don't want you to get hurt. They were like, oh, we're going to do it in the spring. I'm like, that's stupid. Well, they said, no, we're going to have a fall league. And what I did not know at that time is my son had been suffering with severe mental illness, schizophrenia, and depression for years. Just eating it. Just a good boy, man. Soldiering on. I didn't know. I mean, looking back, the only sign of mental illness that we could now diagnose is apathy. He didn't want to do anything. And I thought, all right, he's getting older. He's getting ready to join the Army, man. I'm like, all right. But he never got in trouble. He never acted out like these other kids. He never gave us a sign. And even if he did, bro, we wouldn't know what to do. I'd have just thought, no, I got an all sergeant major on him. And, I wouldn't have helped him at all, And so he came up to me. I was in my office and he goes, hey, Dad, I'm going to go to football practice. And he wasn't going to football practice, bro. I said, all right, son. I came up and gave him a big hug. He was a big kid, man. He was taller than me. He used to call me Shrimp. I'm like, all right. And I said, give me some cheek. I always got some cheek. Gave him a kiss, hugged him. And I said, hey, man, make good decisions. He goes, I will. Never saw him again. He went to the football field, dropped off his kit bag. On the way to the football field, he changed, dropped off his kit bag, and then he drove about 5 minutes away. There's a place called Pulpit Rock. It's a big cliff that overlooks Colorado Springs. And we never found any indication on his phone that he was planning suicide. We found 4 notes saying that I want to die. And after he left, why Pulpit Rock? What we know now is that when you're impulsive and you made these decisions, when you go, you're going. And he must have looked at rock and said, yep. And he parked his truck. We found it that evening. He walked 45 minutes up that cliff. This is how resolved he was to leave. And at the top of that cliff, he did a Snapchat video. And he's like, I can't do this no more. I'm done. I've been depressed. I've been schizophrenic, and I'm done. And then when he said, I'm done, he got happy. He goes, I'm done. And then because he's such a good boy, he's like, I apologize to anybody I've ever lied to. So I used to ask him, just Dad, hey, you okay? Everything going fine? Anything you want to talk about? Then I'd give my dad lectures and I'd look at him and go, you done with Dad? He goes, yeah, but never, you all right? Yeah. He didn't know how to tell the coach. He didn't want to play. He loved this coach. He didn't know how to tell the team. He wanted to play. He loved this boy. He just loved sports because he was around his buddies,
Yeah.
He didn't know how to tell me. We were tight, and he posted that message on Snapchat, and he ran off that cliff because he had a healthcare app on. He took 39 steps in 7.2 seconds and launched himself off that cliff. Well, that, of course, I'm sitting at my desk. I don't know anything, and my daughter calls up screaming, Mac's going to hurt himself. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just saw him, man, an hour ago. He goes, he's going to hurt himself. And I'm like, what? And he says, he's on Pulpit Rock. Well, Pulpit Rock was, I used to run there from our house. It's a great place to run. And I ran there all the time, hating that place after he left until we moved. But so I flew out of there. And his phone was still generating a ping at an address. So I came flying up in this neighborhood. Everybody's freaking out. I mean, I was screaming. I must have been doing 60 miles an hour. Hit the brakes, skid over, got out. I got a gun. I don't know who's fucking with my son. Pardon my French. Sorry, I got to get used to that. And I came out, dude, ready to deal. And this dude comes out. I'm like, where's my boy? Where's my boy? And I'm just losing it, dude. I wasn't wearing any socks. I just put on some shoes. I said, where's my boy? He goes, what are you talking about? And I go, dude, my son's here. My son's here. And I'm running around, I've got a gun. I'm like, and anyways, then they said, no, the pings moved back to around Pulpit Rock. So I parked and I ran through the backwoods because I was figuring everybody was on the front of the rock because that's where you park. I came in through the back because I thought he might have been, trying to get away. At no time did I think he was going to do what when he said he was done, because we had no indication. He just said, I'm done. And so I ran all over the place. I ran the cuts. And by that time, the entire football team was there. The wrestling team was there. We had 150 people on that rock. Never found him. So this time, now we found his shoes. And by this time, it's getting later on in the evening. We're running all over the place. And that ping kept moving. So we kept chasing that ping. Meanwhile, we had a girl back at the house. She found a bunch of the football players down in Mac's room sniffing around, trying to rip his room apart. She kicked them all out. We didn't know what that was at the time. But we stayed out there, man. We stayed out there. We were in apartment complexes. Anywhere around it, we kept spreading out the search. And we were out. And then finally, the sheriff, I knew the sheriff in Woodland Park. I'm like, wait, we got to get some dogs out. By that time, they wouldn't put the dogs out. It was nighttime, He says, Bruce, you got to call, NMIC, the National Missing Child Center, whatever. And I didn't.
Yeah.
Like I it's like, man, I don't want to do this. But I did. And I told my wife, I said, all right, you stay here with Donna, and I'm going to head out. I went back out, dude, and we were out till 4:30 in the morning, man, tearing things up, man. Like I said, man, we were all over the place. And I was running through it. I'm screaming. I was like, Mac, it's okay. Whatever it is, we're going to fix it. We'll move to Florida. You don't have to play football. I just didn't know. I mean, I'm just screaming out loud, man. I'm going in, whatever. So 5:30 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, I come home. And I get 30 minutes of sleep, and I'm back out there. I told my wife, I said, I'm bringing my boy home. I'm coming to get him. I'm going to get him. I'm fine. He's out there. Because it was getting cold that night. We're like, all right, he doesn't have any sneakers. How far can he run, right? And then we started getting signs that people saw him. So we go back out there. Sun's coming up. I'm up on Pulpit Rock. I got my binos. I'm looking. Didn't know at the time, but my boy was right underneath me. And didn't see him. I never looked down. I'm looking out, right? And so I got off the rock, and I saw about a mile ahead some guy with a white shirt, black pants like him. I'm like, oh, fucking God, man, it's him. Because when you're in the mode, man, you're praying, right? And before I left the rock, this lady came up, and she goes, what do you, I said, hey, have you seen the boy? Have you seen the boy? We're asking anybody, have you seen the boy? She goes, what do you, I said, my son got lost last night. We can't find him. He says he's going to hurt himself. And she says, can I say a prayer, please? And we had this, she said this amazing prayer up on the rock. The sun's coming up. We're holding hands in a circle. And I'm like, thank you so much. And I bam, gone. So I got my pistol. I'm literally clearing. Now I'm down by the railroad tracks. There's all these homeless camps. I'm going in there. Got my pistol. I don't have it out in the back of my pants. Like, hey, have you seen my boy? Have you seen my boy? These homeless guys and girls are like, they're heartbroken. We did prayer circles in homeless camps. And I said, we say a prayer. We hope you find him. And I just met amazing humanity that day. And then I got word, hey, Bruce, you need to come back. The news is here. Well, they knew all at that time they had found him. So I went back and I got in my car, and this guy come up. He was pretending to be my friend at the time. I didn't know it, but he's like, hey, they found Mac. I said, well, is he okay? And he shook his head. And I said, is he? He goes, yeah. And he caught me. I had to walk away, and I had that gun, I'm like, you start thinking that it's all your fault. Maybe I should just go join them, And I had it out, and I looked over, and I saw my wife and my daughters, crying and holding on to each other. I'm like, man, I can't leave them, dude. So I cleared the pistol and put it in my pants. I didn't want the cops see with the gun. Went over there and hugged on them, and I'm just screaming. I didn't know. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. And they wouldn't let us go see him, so I knew it was pretty bad. And what had happened is when he jumped, he landed in like this crevice. There's these big boulders at the bottom because the cliff's been deteriorating over years. And God had put him in this crevice where nobody was going to find him because they had got the dogs up. My wife raised enough hell to get those up. And I was like, it was such a mess, dude. It was such a mess. I mean, what it does to a family is trying to stay together. And now you got to deal with all this other stuff. Not only why is he gone? Why is my son not here? But you got to plan funeral services. You got to plan, cremation and all this stuff that you just don't want to deal with, man. And of course, we all started drinking, that's, Green Beret way, and it's, mask the pain. And we had all these meetings. And meanwhile, I've got the cops on this because it's a homicide, right? Until it gets, declared, until the autopsy report comes back. So I'm talking to this cop, and what he don't know is that I deal with data. I've got some of the baddest data people in this country, and I had them on it. They're using ad tech data. They're tracking phones. I'm giving stuff to the police, and they're like, where are you getting this? I'm like, bro, this is my job. They're like, damn, man. I said, you need to check out this teacher. We've got this phone number up here, and man, I'm going nuts, man, because somebody hurt my kid, and I'm hurting somebody. I'm going to hurt somebody back. And so, that whole week was the police officers trying to find, was there something in the family, right? That, because we're thinking pornography, Satan, we don't know. And he's like, dude, I have to list this as a suicide. I can't find anything right now, but it will be open as a homicide until the autopsy report comes back. So why am I here still today is because that Thursday, we were getting ready to bury Mac on Saturday. And we had the service, we didn't know where, but we were going to have him cremated. And my wife had a friend whose father was one of the top forensic pathologists in America. And her daughter called him. He says, I want to talk to Mr. Parkman. So we have two daughters. One's a nurse, a nursing practitioner. One's a lawyer. So I said, hey, lawyer girl, you're in the car with her. I want you on this. So she gets in there with her best friend, two of the smartest chicks in America, right? So I'm like, all right, man, I got my legal team here, man. Let's go. So we start talking. He says, tell me about it. I said, well, here's what happened. He goes, what are you doing with the body? I said, well, we're going to cremate him. He goes, why are you doing that? I'm like, what are you saying? He goes, sir, if there's any coercion and we find this out, how are we going to look at the body? How are you going to make sure that everything was covered? I'm like, all right, we're not going to cremate the body. That decision right there, because that gentleman, is one of the reasons I'm still on this earth. Flash forward, we get through the service. Then my wife starts, she relapsed, and after 15 successful years of being sober, and she tries to be with my boy, she's just doing what we all do, missing him. Yeah. So she had to go into therapy and go away for quite a long time to put herself back together, man, because this is soul wrenching, dude. Yeah. And it left me alone, and then just before the service, Mac's ex-best friend came up, and he used to live with us. He used to come over our house all the time. Him, Mac, and Nathan. And when them kids are at the house, dude, it was just rock and roll. They would be up there. All you could hear is thumping. They would be wrestling, laughing, playing video games till like 4 a.m. I didn't know at the time. Like, you guys are bad. Yes, Mr. Life. Parkman. Yeah, we're all right. And then when I used to make them army sandwiches, they loved it, man. Because back when I was a grunt, you'd have the mermite there. You'd get a piece of bread, get a scoop of eggs, sausage patty, another piece of bread. And I used to make them army sandwiches before we go to church every day after I get them tired kids up. So Parker shows up, and he's looking like crap, man. He's like 120 pounds. So I brought him in the garage, and I smacked him around. I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? Turns out he's about 2 weeks enjoying it, my son. He's got a bad relationship. And I just something just felt in my mind, I got to talk to this kid. Yeah. So I went and found him. And I said, Parker, what's going on? He goes, Mr. Parkman, And I said, get in the car. And he didn't want to. He was chipping tires. Like, you throw the tires and he's covered in black. All you can see was eyes, like big white eyeballs. And I said, just get in the car, leather cleans, and we start talking. And he goes, Mr. Parkman, I've got to tell you, I bought some dope from it. I go, dope? He goes, yeah. He goes, he'd been asking me for a long time, and I wouldn't do it because I knew you killed me. But he was so upset. I only did it once. It was right before he left. And I swear it was I got it from a pharmacy. I mean, a dope shop, and it's all clean. I swear. I'm so sorry. And I said, well, did you talk to him? And then I found out that Parker was not allowed to talk to my son because of some dope-related incident about 2 years ago at our ski house. But they loved each other so much, and Mac had a truck, so they were pinging up the whole time, right? He goes, no, we saw each other a lot, but he didn't tell me till right before he left that he was in a lot of pain. Like, what did he tell you? Because we had no information. He says, well, he didn't tell me he was going to hurt himself, Mr. Parker, because I told you. He said, but he told me he wasn't sleeping well. He didn't want to play football, and he just wasn't doing good. And I said, well, what did you tell him? He said, I told him to go tell somebody. And here's what my son, this is what all about this, my boy goes, and he told Mac, he says, you got to tell somebody, Mac. And he looked down and he goes, I don't want to let anybody down. And that's the kind of boy I raised. I mean, not because I'm that kind of guy. I'm not. I mean, how that boy ended up being a monster, just honorable, young, committed, just a great kid he was. I have no idea. It's probably my wife and nothing to do with me. And so I said, hey, man, you want a shot at the title? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, hey, you look pretty messed up, man. You're not going to make it if you don't do so. He says, what do you want me to do? So you're going to get rid of that girlfriend that's a mess. You get out of your lease, you're going to live with me. He goes, I want that. That's all right. That's what we did. So meanwhile, I got him over there. I'm alone. And the autopsy report comes in. And we get on the phone with this autopsy guy. And this is how things line up when God wants something to happen. So the autopsy, the coroner gets on the phone. He says, I'm so sorry, Mr. Parkman. This is a suicide. I said, really? He goes, yeah. I said, can you answer me a question? He's like, what's that? I said, you tell me why my boy, who was loved so deeply, that never knew any of the emotional, physical, sexual stress, trauma that I had, that was raised in a Christian household, that went to a Christian private school, that, not that he had the world by the tail, but he went skiing every year. He went to the beach every summer, and he's been with me all over the world. Why is he not here? And again, he asked me, he said one thing that got me to this chair. He's like, did he play contact sports? And I said, oh, hell yeah. What do you think? Yeah, he plays. When did he start? 6 years old. He started wrestling. He's played rugby. He's played hockey. He's played soccer. He's a wrestling captain this year. He's the blindside guy in the football team. And he goes, well, I tried to start a CTE exam. I said, what's CTE? He goes, that football disease. I'm like, what? So he says, you might want to check into it. He says, but unfortunately, it's a suicide. And I said, all right, what about the toxicology reports? Guess what? My son was stone cold sober when he ran off that cliff. Now, he says, we can tell that he had been using marijuana, but it was very lightly. But that day, because they can tell in the bloodstream if it's active, he said, your son ran off that cliff sober. I'm like, what have I done that would make a kid run off a cliff sober? I'm like, where do I, it's all about it. But this time, man, this is all about me. I got to own this. I got to do something. I don't really want to be here right now. I mean, my wife's gone, and I'm all by myself wrestling with all this crap. And I said, well, I gotta keep moving wisely out here. So I called up an organization called StopCT.org. Karen Kinzel, who's one of the call her mom now. She answers the phone. She called me back in 5 minutes. She goes, tell me about your boy. And I told her. She goes, my God, Bruce. She goes, he never had a chance. I go, from what? She goes, these contact sports hurt these kids' brains. And she goes, I lost my son. And she goes, you need to talk to Concussion Legacy Foundation. And call them up, call the BU. BU calls back. They talk to me on the phone. Boston University owns the Unite Brain Bank, where all the NFL players are at. And they go, hey, Mr. Parkman. They call me back the next day. Hey, we're very, very sorry. And I said, about what? They go, well, your son would have been a great donation, but, you know, obviously he's buried. It's been 3 months, you know. And I said, oh, no, I still got the body. Because remember when I told them, we kept the body on ice, just waiting for all this information. They go, what? I go, yeah, man. They go, 3 months later. I go, no. They said, give us the funeral home name and the coroner's name. I gave them that. They called me back next day. They go, we cannot believe this has never happened. You're going to be able to make a full donation. Well, bam, Matt goes up there. Now we have to wait 9 months for them to do the CTE assessment, or almost a year. So this is September now. We didn't get it till September next year. So I'm not even putting my life back together. I don't care. Thank God I've got a great Green Beret COO. He's running the company. My stepson, he's like, all right, I want to be an Army Ranger. I'm like, all right, buddy, let's do this. And bam, he's on it. I'm doing, 12-mile rucksack marches. I mean, we're crushing it, bro. Crushing it.
Starting to live again.
And so he's keeping me alive. He's giving me a mission. I'm going to fix this kid. And he was, and he did. We kind of saved each other. So that was, we closed down the house, moved everything out here to Florida, and drove 2 days in a truck with all this crap, and I'm trying. And my buddies run the company, and then so we keep going. And then I said, you know what? I'm not waiting for this report. I'm going to start reading. I want to know. So I started researching. I bought every book. I got every book over there on schizophrenia, mental illness, big medical tomes. And every night I would read. And then I'd read research papers. And then, and I read for like 6 months. So by the time the CTE exam was about ready, I was already about 5 months into writing this book that I had to write. And so I was already heavily researched in this stuff. And I came to the conclusion as I was reading this, I'm like,
and real quick, what's the name of that book, Bruce?
Oh, so it's Youth Contact Sports and Broken Brains. It's available for free. We give it away. I don't make any money off this book. I mean, people sometimes buy it off Amazon. They want to help with it. So I don't care. I get a stack of them. I put them in gyms. I put them all over.
Yeah, and I want to highlight just the difference in approaching problems as a Green Beret and a father. Data, that we are going to crush through data to get answers, to get information about the enemy. And that's exactly what you did. You didn't wait for somebody else. You started finding the answers yourself. And that is a testament to who you are, Bruce.
I appreciate that, Danny. But that's the issue. There were no answers. Like, I'm like, why is my son not here? BU can't answer it. They're the CTE brains. The coroner can't answer it. I'm looking online. There's nothing from the NIH and CTC about kids and CTE and what causes it. And I'm like, how the hell do parents allow their kids to play if this is actually the cause, which I didn't know? Well, the only clue I had was my son saying, hey, I'm schizophrenic and depressed. So I know that happens, and I know you have to be schizophrenic when you run off a cliff sober and take your life. So you got to be hurting really, really bad. So I started researching those diseases, and I found out that those forms of mental illness, behavioral, psychological, the cognitive side, he was still doing okay in school. He probably was going down, and we never tested for it, but they all result from a damaged brain. It's been known for 40 years that schizophrenia and a damaged prefrontal cortex or synaptic death or demyelination highly correlated. I mean, there's hundreds of research papers on this. So then I started researching on, well, what could it cause my son's brain damage to get to those mental illness states? And I knew he had 3 concussions. They were over his 8th and 9th grade years of playing sports, and they were over like a bunch of. He didn't have 2 in a row. He had 1 in wrestling, then 1 in football, then another 1 in wrestling. And the 1 in wrestling, I guess, was pretty hard. I was in Australia at the time. He got suplexed. And I started digging into this thing called subconcussive trauma. Well, at that time, there were only really 2 or 3 research papers on the issue of subconcussive trauma. And everything was focused on concussions, right? Concussions are bad, right? Everything's on concussions. Well, concussions, I found out, don't have a dang thing to do with it. They're not good, right? But if you get a concussion, which is like a TBI, and then you do not repeatedly hit the head, you can heal. You can get back to where you were. When you start hammering the head over and over with these little subconcussive hits, what we now call repeated head impacts, that changes the brain at the microcellular level in critical structures like the prefrontal cortex, demyelination of the axons, synaptic shearing, synaptic death, microvascular changes like bleeding inside the brain, internal bleeding, these little capillary bleeds that over time change the brain, and you end up with the same damage that's been known to cause schizophrenia, depression. Well, now it's a math problem. So this old grouchy sergeant major goes and figures out like that contact sports and subconcussive trauma is what is causing this mental illness that killed my son. So here comes Dr. Ann McKee, the foremost researcher, and we're going to interview her here soon on CTE. She's got my son's brain, right? The top lady in the world. And she goes, Bruce, we didn't find CTE. And I'm sitting there with my wife, and I said, okay, Dr. McKee. I said, did you find structural damage to the brain? Because I don't know what she's looking for. I know she's looking for tau proteins, amyloid concentrations. She looks at me like I got these headphones on. She's like, why would you ask me that?
Yeah.
I go, Dr. McKee. I said, let me ask you this. Is it of your opinion that the 10 years that my son's played 10 and a half months of contact sports per year had anything to do with his decision to take his life? She goes, absolutely. Because he was a snowboarder. If there was snow, because remember, my son's activity schedules started in July with football through October. Then October, wrestling picked up because it started in September. They would go to March. And then, boy, if there was snow in Breckenridge, man, boy, let's go. Man, breakfast pizza, man, we were out there, man. We were banging it. He's double black diamond snowboarder, man. He's out there, didn't want to take lessons. More hits, right? So she goes, oh, absolutely. She goes, but why would you ask me that? I said, Dr. McKee, I said, I am almost done with a book that I have to write because I am finding out, and I am of the strong opinion that all the subconcussive trauma that these young brains take, especially while they're developing, is changing their brains and contributing to mental illness. And then she goes, tell me how he died. So we told her the whole story. She goes, I'm going to go back and take a look. So again, here's the Lord, Mac, looking down, right? She comes back 6 months later. By that time, I had already got her to read my book. She endorsed it. And she sent me a note. She goes, Bruce, it is all about the kids. And she comes back. She goes, Bruce, we studied your son's brain. She goes, we found structural damage. Would you fund a study? I said, I will. We gave them $250,000. God's been good to us. And for the first time, this is why I'm kind of upset then. He's like, here I am, a dad. One of millions of dads that want their kids to play contact sports because we think it makes them, tough or ownership, loyalty, all the awesome things you learn on a team, whether it's an A team or a sports team, right? And we're all operating in a vast field of ignorance, and we're harming our children. And I was so appalled, and my anger at that time, bro, towards everybody. If you had anything to do with it, if you made football helmets, you played NFL, I don't like you, I don't care. and I was on a mission, dude. And so, and she comes back 6 months later. And so we fund the study. So meanwhile, we launched the book. I said, dude, we've got to do something about this. We started the foundation. We just started small, reaching out, getting on Twitter, letting people know. But there is one thing that has helped us a lot is that, in 21 years of business and being a Green Beret, the Lord's kind of prepped me for this. I know what marketing is. I've had commercial companies. I've had defense contracting companies. I've started nonprofits. I was a plank member of the Green Beret Foundation. I'm the founder of the Global Soft Foundation. So I know how to start a nonprofit. I had all this life experience that kind of made me one of the actual, the right guys to start this thing, right? To start a movement, right? So, well, I mean, that's what we did, man. We said, hey, this is what we're going. So we started, joining, associations, getting the word out. I'm speaking, I'm doing presentations. And I went back to my son's school and I had a meeting with him because I'm pretty much going to take him to court if they don't get rid of that middle school football team. And I gave them a presentation on what happened to Mac. That's the name of it. I said, hey, here's what happened to my boy. And they have yet 2 years later to change any way that they address sports. And my son was in that sports system for 10 years. Okay. And now with this new knowledge, they haven't done a damn thing. And that's going to change, dude. I'm going to make that happen. But in August of last year, that study was released. And they finally looked at every brain under 30. And out of 162 brains, They said 40% of them had CTE. And we all know that's not good. That's a large number. That sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, these kids are under 30, and we used to have it we used to find it when it first started in the 50s and 60s. But those guys my age didn't start. They never had Pop Warner right now, so the exposure starts so early that we're finding CT earlier. But what stood out in that study is that 100% of those brains were found to be structurally defective. 100% of those brains were found to have severe psychological disorders associated with them, and 80% of them took their lives by suicide or overdose. CTE is not the problem. You don't die from CTE, you die with it. You die from mental illness that's associated with the changes to your brain that we know cause mental illness.
There you go.
So that's what happened to Mac. And that's why I'm here, is that young man, the way he took his life. You know, my buddy, he came out for the funeral. He's an FBI guy. He ran FBI SWAT Chicago. He goes, Bruce, I can understand maybe your son committing suicide. He said this, but it's how he did it. What in God's name made him do it that way? He goes, that is saying something, bro. You need to dig into this, right? And he's a good friend of mine. And he was right. I mean, the way my son took his life, for being the kind of kid he was, and just, man, the kid, I mean, it hurt him. I got stories about us hiding stuff from his mom that would bother him. He goes, Dad, you have to tell. Like one time we raised chickens, we didn't tell her that we bought them. He's like, you got to tell Mom. I'm like, Mac, he says, Dad. I'm like, all right. And then next day, you tell Mom? I said, well, not yet, because I didn't want to know. I knew he was going to get hammered, right? I'm going to get hammered. He goes, Dad, you have to tell her. It's like, all right. I mean, that's the kind of boy he was, man. Gentle, loving, caring. He was the kid that would drive the less fortunate kids around. He would, I gave him, a couple $100 a month for gas and McDonald's money. He'd buy him McDonald's. He was just, the stories I heard at the service from these kids coming up to me going, I don't know if you know this, but Mac did this for me. And I mean, that's who he was. And that day obviously changed my life. And I have to make him proud. So every day, that's what I do. I talk. I try to get people to understand. We just had the first conference on subcussive trauma in the history of the world. For some reason, after all these NFL deaths, after all these suicides and tragedies and hundreds of thousands of kids in mental health care, and nobody even knowing that this is an issue. This is not trained for doctors, nurses, psychologists, athletic trainers. Nobody even knows that this is an issue right now. This is how big our mission is. And we'll talk about veterans because that's a whole nother, it's the same outcome, same problem, changed brains, different pathway, blast exposure, right? We can talk about that anytime. So we picked up veterans causes now in order because, hey, I know a little bit about veterans. I'm a retired guy and I got general anxiety disorder from a damaged brain from all the crazy stuff we did, got shot in the face, all that dumb stuff. So now we're picking up veterans classes, but Mac is causing this. Mac is driving this, and we're not going to let him down. And for you to come on and volunteer to help us with producing this means so much because, man, the people we're going to have on this show and the noise that we are creating, and it's all good. We're not confrontational with anybody because it's not about let's kill contact sports. No, man, I'm still playing rugby. I'm 61, right? I'm all about smacking another guy, but I didn't start till I was 28. Brain doesn't mature till 25. Wait till we get Dr. Julie Stam on the show. Talk about that. So it's all about, look, we can have football, we can have rugby, we can have our contact sports. We can still have the most lethal military in the world. But we have to understand the concepts of repeated head injuries, repeated head impacts, and repeated blast exposures. And we need to change the way we train. We need to change the way we play, and we need to change the way we look at sports. It's not a young kid. It's not about winning games all the time. It's about teaching you the beauty of participating in a team activity and the wonderful things that come out of that camaraderie, and yet protecting your brain so you can be a successful adult. We have no idea how much human capital and leadership we've lost from this issue. And but that's what happened to Mac, man. And it's been a long, hard road, and but I want to make noise, man, because I talked to Senator Rick Scott's guys up there, and we're going to have congressional hearings next year. I mean, we are not messing around. Yeah. And he says, look, just make noise. And when every parent that's allowed their kids to play finds out, that this is an issue that has not been addressed by the CDC, NIH, the President's Council of Physical Fitness, the American Medical Association, the American Association of Pediatrics. All their position papers on contact sports don't even cover this, are years old. Yet they're starting to support some of the changes. We need to have dramatic change because kids are still dying. I was contacted by a family 2 weeks ago. The contact organization, their son jumped off a bridge into oncoming traffic and was killed immediately. You know what his only sin was? You know what his crime was? That young man loved to head the soccer ball. And every day he would practice heading the soccer ball. And nobody said you can't head the soccer ball because nobody knows that heading the soccer ball over years will change your brain.
Yeah.
These are and then, and then our soldiers whose only crime was, hey, I'm going to go fight for my country, coming back and not being assessed or diagnosed, and then having treatments not available that can change their brain. We're going to fix all this, bro. We're going to fix all this. So, yeah, man. Episode 1 from the Mac Parkman Studios here on Anna Maria Island.
That's right. Bruce, I want to thank you for being so vulnerable and open and so passionate about this cause, because when we focus our energy into something that is deeply tied to our heart and to our mind, and we don't let any obstacles get in the way, we change the world. And that's exactly what you're doing. And you've been doing this, and to be part of this mission and help amplify it, brother, I'm in 100%. Real quick, if anybody's interested and they want to know more, where can they go to get more information about the Mac Parkman Foundation?
You can just look up Mac Parkman Foundation. Our website is www.mpfact, FACT, the Mac Parkman Foundation for Adolescent Concussive Trauma. You can go just type in youth contact, sports, and broken brains. Our website should come up, and you can go to where it says book, click on that link, and you can download the PDF for free. I am in the middle of the second edition right now. We're going to be adding chapters on traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, how this applies to veterans and stuff like that. So we're going to update the book pretty soon. But yeah, books for free. It'll change your perception on everything. It's only 88 pages because that's the problem with these books. A doctor writes a book. It's a doctor book. A parent's like, I ain't reading that thing. You can read this, 88 pages. It's even got pictures in it for veterans. Okay, pictures. We love pictures. And 88 pages, one plane ride, a couple bags of popcorn, a couple Cokes. And you will be informed. That's all we're asking. You make your own decisions, but you should be informed. And right now, we're not.
Yep, that's right. So tune in every week on Mondays to the Broken Brain podcast, and you're going to get some amazing insight into how you can learn more about your brain and what contact sports does to your brain. Thank you for tuning in. And next time, you're not going to hear my voice at all. It's going to be Bruce. We'll see you guys later. Take care.
You got a great voice. We might have to co-host a couple of them, buddy.
Deal.
All right. Game on, man. All right, pal.